What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Highlight 30.
We're back, baby.
We are back. We are doing it. We are much more prepared for this one.
Yeah.
We're sharp today on this fine Monday night here. Keep it short and sweet. We do always have a lot to talk about, but today we are focusing on just one thing. That's going to be a team that especially Shane lives and dies by.
Yeah.
That would be the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Mostly die by.
Yeah, a lot of not too many highlights, but jam-packed episode. We're going to look at the current year, the roster itself, what's gone maybe not as planned for the boys this year.
Not much.
But we do have a quick little highlight reel that we are going to be watching and analyzing on some things that did go right.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, we have a lot to look forward to in 2022. Obviously, I think you can agree, and many people would, that this year was kind of just a test or feel-out kind of year.
Yeah, a lot of young, new pieces.
And, it's an NFL franchise. There's a lot of moving parts, and the Jags don't quite have them all worked out yet, but I think they're on the right track.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that gotta be put in place and a lot of question marks, but at least we have Trevor Lawrence, and I know there's a lot of maybe doubts around him, and a lot of people call him a bust and stuff like that, but he has nothing to work with. There's so many moving pieces, and he will figure it out. I mean, we've seen Trevor at Clemson. He will find success, and it's just getting the right pieces around him. I mean, he's 21, 22 years old, and he will grow. But, yeah, we can get into the roster and then what we think went wrong. So,
yeah, I mean, kind of just touching on your point, he's lost more games this year than he has in his last 7 years, maybe his whole life.
He's tripled him.
So it's definitely something, it's a learning experience for him. The NFL is obviously not an easy league, playing against grown men and now people that are not your age anymore.
Yeah.
But, I mean, looking at the current roster, we have a little board up here to kind of look at. We have every position written down. Obviously, Urban Meyer's first year in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of expected there to be some rough patches, especially coming to, not a well-established team in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But one that does have some things to look forward to, I would say.
Yeah, I think with Urban, a lot of people, there's a lot of doubts, but I think a big mistake he made was putting too much trust in his coaches. I know that's important to have, but I don't feel like there's one centerpiece of game planning that they're having. We see there's a lot of back and forth between Bevel and Urban. Urban likes that college scheme. Bevel is more of an NFL run-first type of guy. And so I think Bevel's gone after this year. A lot of people want Urban gone, but it's just not realistic. Shad Khan put too much into him to let him go. So I think the answer is getting rid of Bevel, the running back coach, and the receivers. The receivers can't get a foot of separation. And Trevor, he gets sacked and stuff like that, but if you look downfield, there's literally no one. But, we can look at the roster here. So, obviously, QB1, we like Trevor.
That's not going to change there.
Running back, James Robinson, I think they're going to figure it out because I know there's a lot of going on with him right now, and he's getting punished like a middle schooler. But I think once you get that new offensive coordinator in, then he will figure that out.
Yeah, and definitely, looking at this roster itself, we have Robinson and then Carlos Hyde at the 2. This is their current roster going into Week 14 of the season. So every team does battle with injuries, obviously, but we'll kind of touch on those after. But this is what they're going to be working with, hopefully, for the rest of the year. And these guys can even stay healthy. But
yeah, so you got, like we said, Trevor at QB1, Robinson and Hyde at running back. And then you get in receivers, which, most of us thought that was going to be the strength of the team. But I think a big mistake was losing Sanjay to the Vikings, the wide receiver coach, because Marvin Jones, he can't do it all. He's going into his veteran years. He's just kind of supposed to be that veteran presence and make those, expected plays. But I think the biggest disappointment of the year is Laviska. I think he even came out and quoted that he's just basically running around.
Yeah, like you were saying, these guys are struggling to get open, get separation, but every once in a while when they do get it, they don't tend to catch the football as much as they should.
It's so frustrating to watch because I saw something. It's like the beginning of the week, you start to recover from the Jags loss the previous weekend, just most of the time. And then you start getting some hope because we have Trevor, and then you watch the game, and it's, you got to get a drink out because it's miserable.
Yeah, agreed. And then obviously they got Laquan Treadwell filling in there as well, and then O'Shaughnessy and Chris Manhurst at the tight ends. It is a pretty banged up skill position, but they do have, a lot of skilled players on this team, and obviously they're not even all there right now. So lot to look forward to.
I think they just need to find talent that complements each other. And so Urban, I mean, he preaches about speed and a speed offense, but we did nothing this year to do that. I know it hurt getting DJ Chark injured, but I mean, one of our top receivers who's out now is Jamal Agnew, who's a punt and kick returner.
Yeah.
Like, it's bad. It's really bad. The O-line's getting worse each game. Like, Jawan Taylor's, I mean, he needs to go. Barch, he should just be a depth piece. Linder's hurt all the time. And I think Cam and Norwell do just fine. I mean, there's so many missing holes that sometimes you just got to be okay with some things.
Yeah, and, it's tough. They obviously got to protect Trevor. They haven't done a great job, but statistically wise, I don't think the Jags O-line has been that bad for what they're working with.
Yeah, I think it helps that if Trevor was an immobile quarterback, there'd be a lot more sacks, I think. He's able to extend some plays, but I do think he needs to run more. We're going to look into that in a little bit. The Bengals game, I think that's when they found the most success because Trevor finally used his legs, and I'm not sure if he's being told not to for injury-wise, but, I mean, that's part of Trevor's game, and injuries are part of the game, so you can't play to not get hurt.
Yeah, at this point, it's, what do we have to lose? Like, open up that playbook, let Trevor do what he's got to do because, he can do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do run the risk for injuries now being a 2-10 football team, but still I think they have to let him run or else this offense is just going to continue to get slaughtered.
Agreed. So, basically, the offense has done nothing. I mean, you would like to see that improvement, and I feel like we started to see that. The Bengals, I thought, like, that was the game we were going to turn the corner, and now it's just gone real downhill. So, changes are going to be made. And we'll get into that, what we think are some good key pieces, whether that's free agency or the draft. But there's a lot of work to be done, but you're always going to have hope when you have a quarterback like Trevor.
Definitely. I mean, that's the offensive side of things,
Yeah.
Lots to look forward to, but yes, there's holes that definitely are going to need to be addressed there. But
yeah, we can get into defense, so why don't you get that started?
Yeah, so obviously at the DN spot, obviously the Jags run a 3-4 and have a bunch of different names for it, but we're just keeping it simple with the names we do have there. Josh Allen, a stud. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be a real good player if people are saying he's not yet. But
yeah,
what is it? His second year now?
Yeah, second or third. Yeah. I think he was drafted in 2018 or 19.
True.
But I think a big thing that Josh Allen needs, he's already killing it this year. But I don't know how much you followed the Jags then, but when we had Yannick Ngakoue,
yeah,
I mean they both had 10+ sacks because you can't just focus on one guy. So he needs that complement, and we think that complement is Aiden Hutchinson. Defensive end from Michigan. I think he can stop the run. He can bring pressure, and I think that's going to be a real big thing. But we'll get into that. Sorry, we'll stick with the 2021 here. I got a little carried away.
Yeah, I mean, it's something to look forward to. It's exciting there. I mean, yeah, I don't really know these defensive guys as much. Jihad Ward, Devon Hamilton, Malcolm Brown. Don't really know them that much, but seems like we are going to need a little bit of help on that defensive line. Obviously, Allen can't do it all. Miles Jack can't do it all. These two guys that I feel like is the heart and soul of the Jags defense.
Yeah. And
just not too much backing there in the nose tackle, D-tackle spots, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're good depth pieces, but not when you're coming out with your starters. Malcolm Brown, I mean, we traded him for a 7th-round pick, and he's one of our best D-tackles. I mean, we got to spend some money in the right places. I think that was a big problem of we got average to below average players, and that's what our team is now. I mean, even worse because injuries, and then you go farther back in the depth chart. But I think Devon Hamilton's going to continue to get better. Smoot, he's a good, again, rotation piece along with Kavon Chason. They're just good rotational pieces, and they haven't panned out to be what we expected as Caleb Vaughn as a first-round pick.
Right, and hopefully the Jaguars' first-round draft picks curse was ended with Trevor there. I mean, that was the first overall pick, but they have struggled a little bit with that first pick they usually have in the draft there.
I agree. And then you go to linebackers. I think Miles Jack's good, but I do think he's missing that co-partner because when Kozlowski played, I mean, he looked comfortable. He didn't have to worry about making the play calls on the defensive side, and he was just able to play and run free. And so that is what they're missing with Damian Wilson as his side. He's just a run stopper. You just watched the game yesterday. He was getting killed in coverage.
Yeah.
And that has to do a little bit with the coaching. I mean, he was on like Cooper Kupp a couple plays.
Yeah.
And if you play fantasy, you know he's had a good year.
Yeah, very good year. And Miles Jack is the one that's mic'd up for them now?
Yeah, but they began the year with that, and then after like Game 7, they switched it up.
Okay.
But there's no one that's that big of a leader on that defense with Shaq Griffin out. So there's just a lot of moving pieces, and they're still playing decent for Jacksonville football. But it's hard when you're on the field the whole game. I mean, you're eventually going to wear down, and a team like the Rams, that we just saw, is just going to continue to display their talent against arguably a bottom 3 team in the league.
Yeah, they definitely. The Rams are a team. McVay, just how he plays football, is someone that is going to expose your defense if they're on the field for 3/4 of the game. It seems like.
Agreed.
But yeah, tough game for the Jags in that one. That one we'll kind of just look past over like that.
Yeah.
This secondary, looking at it here, I think we need a little bit of help, just a touch. Obviously, injuries and stuff. Shaq Griffin going down.
Yeah.
But
I think Shaq was our best signing free agency-wise because I think he's played pretty well. He still gets, beat by the bigger receivers, but he's had a pretty good year. And like a one highlight we have, I think, of this second half of the season is Tyson Campbell's finally starting to get it. His, big critique was he doesn't play the ball well, and he finally got his first pick versus the Falcons, so that was big, and I think that's going to lead into something good next year as he continues to grow.
Yeah, I think we just kind of got to have this year as, take the positives from what we can. Like, don't let this year just crush your confidence, and Tyson Campbell's someone that, they are going to need in the future there.
Yeah.
And then looking at the safety spots, Rudy Ford and Rayshon Jenkins are the ones that are kind of running the show now.
And then Wingard.
And then on our board, we have one name way down at the bottom. That would be Andrew Wingard.
He needs to go back. Where he went to Wyoming, College of Wyoming. He needs to go. It's just sad. When you show up on the field and he's our starter, no hate to him, but hate to him because it is brutal. It kills me every week watching him play. I don't know why they haven't given Cisco a chance, whether he doesn't look good in practice, but I think Cisco can just bring that ball hawking talent. Wingard just goes for the tackle and claps after like he made a big play 20 yards down the field.
Yeah, I was looking at just the box score of last game. He was the leading tackler, and Shane was telling me earlier, he does make the tackles, but that's just after we allow a 35-yard gain in a spot where we need to cover.
It's a killer. But overall, looking at this team, it's awful. I would say they have the second worst talent behind or ahead of the Texans. I think the Lions are a better team than them. They've stayed in games. They've lost in very unfortunate ways, like versus the Ravens with that 66-yard field goal. But they just need to be smart this free agency, and I hope they will. There's not much worse you can do than what the current roster is, and so I think Urban needs to get some new coaches in there that have more experience, that mesh well with what he wants to do. Yeah. And I think if they do that, then maybe we can start seeing an upward trend for the Jags.
Yeah, and honestly, the only way is up for the Jags right now.
Yeah.
It's really, if they find a way to do worse next year, then we'll probably skip this episode next year.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of the current team now. We're going to stumble through this next part of the video and just transition into kind of looking at this Bengals game here.
Which I think was our best game this year.
Yeah, definitely the best half of football they played. Obviously, there is two halves in football, and the Jags haven't been able to string together two very often this year. But we'll probably take a look at this video now, just looking at the first half, some of the biggest important plays there.
Yeah, so let's move to that.
Perfect.
Okay, so now we're going to look at the Jags-Bengals game, which was a Thursday night game in Cincinnati. And we're just going to kind of go through a couple plays and series that the Jags had and show the high points and see what Jags can carry into the rest of the season and then heading into the new year. So let's take a look at that now.
Yeah, so just coming off a decent defensive stand by the Jags there. Missed field goal, as we did see here, but...
Yeah, see, this is good with getting... This is why we need more speed. Like Agnew, he's a returner. We can use him, but they need to do more of that. I know he's out this year.
Yeah, definitely more end-arounds than long bombs to Agnew is what the Jags need for next year.
Yeah, but this is good. We haven't seen Trevor use his legs in a while, and that's a big part of his game, so he's got to keep doing that.
Yeah, I wonder where that little mishap is, if it's a coaching thing, if there's a lack of faith somewhere, but definitely need him to be doing that a little bit more.
Agreed. And he's a good pickup right here. Dan Arnold, we traded C.J. Henderson for him. I think he's really going to be a highlight of the team next year.
Yeah, I think that's a trade that we can all say we're happy with.
Yeah, finally, because usually we just get a 5th or 6th round pick, and I like trading for players, getting instant impact. But we got a touchdown there. We got the lead. Now let's see how the defense is.
I mean, it is an extremely tough Bengals receiving core to be covering anyway, obviously with Boyd, Higgins, and then Jamar Chase at this point in the season. But, yeah, they do a pretty solid job. Big sack there.
Yeah, it just seemed like they were playing with such more energy in the beginning of the season, even starting out 0-3. But again, injuries are killers, and that's why depth is so important.
Right. Here's your boy here.
Yeah. Interception. He's got to go. Or just be a special teams player. Yeah, Dan Arnold's big. This was his first game with the Jags, so he knew minimum plays, and he was still one of our best receivers this game.
Yeah, and this is just a drive where the Jaguars' offense is able to just tire out a defense, and there's Trevor doing it again on the ground.
He did it a lot this game. Him in the running, it's going to be a huge part, and I think it will develop next year once he puts on a couple more pounds, and then he has more faith of getting down and sliding and preventing an injury.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I don't think...
Who's this? I haven't seen him play in a while. Oh, it's James Robinson.
Holding on to the football today, yeah.
He'll be back. He'll find his groove, and the coaching staff and him will get on the same page.
Yeah, definitely. And this is just chip away, outlast him here.
Yeah, but they just seem in such more rhythm here. That was a good catch.
Yeah.
But there's just so much flow, and I don't know if they need to start doing up pace or whatnot, but it just looks so much more fluid. Yeah, and there's another touchdown there. I mean, this game was fun to watch for the first half.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess something else, that option play they do like to run there.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah, another deep. We'll just go through a little bit more just to see, because I mean, this was the best couple minutes of the Jags.
Yeah.
Right here is Trevor's highlight of the year so far.
Yeah, definitely. Soak it in.
On the run, Laviska actually caught the ball. So I mean, they got to watch film and see what's working and what's not, and then emphasize those plays.
Definitely, and a lot of good positive takeaways from this first half of football here.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really end as planned on this 4th down here, but still a great half
that
was played by the Jags here.
And this is like a learning experience. It's not a turnover. It's nothing like that. Trevor probably should have probably flipped the ball, and you watch that on film and you'll grow. I mean, this is game 4 of his whole career.
Yeah, very true there. But that's all we were going to kind of take a look at here for this one. We are going to flip you over to just looking at some new possible opportunities that we see for the Jags for the 2022 season. So
yeah, let's get excited like we do every year, and then hopefully this year we'll pull through.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll catch you there. All right, now switching lanes a little bit, looking at the same thing you guys are looking at, just, more of a projection type of roster. Obviously, none of this is set in stone, but I would say that, a lot of Jags fans around would be pretty happy if this is kind of how we can potentially see this playing out for the 22 roster there. But yeah, hop right into it.
Okay, so obviously Trevor Lawrence, we're keeping him. I think C.J. Beathard's a good veteran just to have behind Trevor. We saw him come in for like 2 plays. He's not scared to throw the ball up. He can make plays if Trevor goes down, and he can add that, just experience Trevor doesn't have in the NFL.
Yeah, I would definitely say, he's someone that's good to have in the quarterback room. He's been on a 49ers team that was pretty competitive in the past. I know that. But yeah, I think we're pretty set on the quarterbacks working forwards. But obviously, Travis Etienne going down with that nasty foot injury, it's a tough one to recover from. But obviously, he is so young, he's so talented. That Clemson connection's huge for him and T-Law. But James Robinson's still going to be in that one hole as long as he holds on to the football. And the offense has trust in him, kind of on that sense of things. But, yeah, not too much shaking up in the backfield.
Yeah, and so now is where it gets interesting. And so these are just kind of options we see. They're going to be free agents next year. And so it's either or here. If we can target Chris Godwin, I think the Bucs will try to re-sign him because he's such a reliable veteran. But if we could bring him, I think that'd be huge. If not, we could look at someone like Michael Thomas. And I think we would have a good chance just because of his connection with Urban Meyer. And so that would be our wide receiver 1 right there, whoever we're able to get there. I think you have to bring DJ Chark back because we saw how abysmal the offense got without him. And then with our second pick in the draft name to look at is Jameis Williams. He would be a rookie. He played at Ohio State and then transferred to Alabama, and he would just add that speed and finally like a true slot receiver that we need. And then again, you would have Laviska Shenault and Jamal Agnew that would just need to continue to develop.
Yeah, I mean, definitely I would say that would be a better wide receiver room than that we're kind of looking at this year. Obviously, Marvin Jones Jr. just can't really do it. I would say Chark coming back is going to be huge there, but obviously some little ambiguous, but hopefully we can get one of those top two guys there. I mean,
yeah, Trevor needs that true number one, that reliable, always going to be open type of receiver. And then tight ends, I think Dan Arnold, he's reliable. He'll be good. It'd be huge to add someone like Max Williams or David Njoku in free agency. They can both catch, they can both block, and it'd just be a good another presence because we never have a good set of tight ends, and hopefully this offseason is finally it. And then you have Luke Farrell's depth, again, an Ohio State tie that Urban won't let go.
True. Yeah. I mean, I think the Jags have a lot of money to spend too, don't they?
Yeah, they're, again, number one. It's just if they use it correctly, and hopefully they learn from their mistakes this offseason and will do so.
Yeah, I mean, overall, pretty decent look there for our skill players there on offense.
Yeah, for sure, and a huge influx of talent.
Yeah, and then as Shane was telling me earlier, the left side of the line is pretty solid with Robinson and Norwell there. They're going to be able to get it done. They're going to stay around, continue to grow as they already have been, showing signs of, hope and stuff like that. And then Brandon Linder, as long as he's healthy, he's going to be able to lock down that center spot there. The right side of the line, maybe not the exact same story. Potentially looking at getting a new guard. Brandon Scherf is just a vet kind of guy that, he's been around the league for a while. He knows what he's doing out there. And probably, at the same time, even though just standing next to Walker Little can, coach him, give him some little tips and stuff like that. But final little note there is we had to add just a depth spot down there with Ben Barch and Tyler Shatley. Offensive linemen, they're big dudes. They're going to get hurt, things like that. But just having two guys that can back up, hopefully, a new look starting Jaguars line there. But kind of the offense side of things.
Yeah, we should see improvement. Walker Little was a left tackle at Stanford, but he was out the last 2 years of college. So he's still getting his footing back. I'm interested to see if they will try him out at right tackle. If not, then we'll have to look at free agency or the draft. But I think, from what I've heard, they really like him. So hopefully he'll get some playing time the rest of the year, and we can see what he's able to do. But I think major improvement on the offensive side. They can go a couple different ways with some of the options we have here. But, yeah, they should be much improved. So defense?
Yeah, I mean, as we were mentioning earlier, Josh Allen, I think I can see him being a Jaguar his whole career.
I hope so.
Probably thought the same things for guys, like Calais. I thought he was a real staple. Ramsey, Ngakoue, Fowler, all those guys. They had some studs, but Josh Allen's that up and coming one. He's going to be staying around. As you mentioned, like Kayvon Chasen, he's solid. Probably a better rotational guy maybe, but does provide some value there. Just having him as well.
Yep, and then Devon Hamilton, again, another Ohio State tie. He's good. He's going to continue to improve. He's shown tremendous growth this year, and he'll rotate in with Jay Tufele, who's been out a little bit this year, but I've watched him play, and he's got good technique, and he'll continue to grow. And then at D-tackle, we're thinking about the signing of Larry Uganabi. He plays for the Bengals. He was drafted by the Browns, and the Bengals have a pretty good defense, so he'd be a pretty reliable source there, and I think we just need to move on from Malcolm Brown. He's old, and this would be a good replacement along with the rotation of Adam Gotsis, who's actually played pretty well this year.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, that we were talking earlier, the Jags have a lot of money to spend, Obviously, this D-tackle spot's probably one they should be filling, a decent amount of guys on the free agency list this year. So hopefully they pick the right one out of the hat, and that same player will be wanting to come to Jacksonville. I feel like that's also been maybe a little bit of a struggle trying to get some of these bigger names, Getting Marvin Jones Jr., that was one of the bigger signings. Getting Griffin to come was pretty big too.
Yeah.
But, as Shane was mentioning earlier, this Hutchinson kid's a stud. I mean, he's literally in the Heisman running of the deal. But the Jags do only have one first-round pick, so this was one that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think we're going to end up with first or second. We're placed at 2 right now, and so I think it'd be him or the DN from Oregon. I can't think of his name right now, but they're both really good athletes, but I prefer Hutchinson because he's a better run stopper. But I would think Hutchinson with our first pick and then trade up, and that's how we would get Jameis Williams because he'll be a first-round talent for sure. But I think we just got to continue to add depth and really improve the interior of the line because that will help the outerior get pressure.
Yeah, definitely. And, as we were mentioning, Josh Allen's got a lot of weight on his shoulders this year. Getting someone like Hutchinson or whoever this kid from Oregon is definitely will kind of just take a little bit of pressure off him.
Yep, and then we look at linebackers. So we know the staple in the middle of the defense is Miles Jack. He's a great talent, but he needs help. And I think help is on the way with Kenny Young. Played with the Rams this year. Very talented. A disciplined football player. He got traded to Denver, and he starts there now, who's also a solid defense. We saw that when we played them a couple weeks ago. And I think Kenny is growing into a role where he can be a captain of a defense so he can take the play calling from Miles Jack and allow Miles Jack to run free.
Yeah, hopefully, that middle of that defense is something that is going to be good for the Jags. I feel like it's something that hasn't quite been there for a little bit.
Yeah, not much
the fall apart of the 17 team. But looking into the secondary now, one kid that Shane's pretty high on is Mikel Wright. He's from Oregon as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a good talent. I watched him versus Ohio State. I think we can move him inside to the nickel position, and while he grows and fills his body, because he's only I think 6 foot, 178 pounds, and so I just think we need some talent, some swagger in the secondary. The Jags haven't had that since Ramsey, and I think a kid like Mikel can bring that.
Yeah, and the one guy who does bring a little bit of swag, I would say, is Shaquille Griffin.
Yeah, agreed.
Just a good cornerback to have. Obviously, has allowed the big plays, but it's not easy going against some of these number one wideouts that he's had to do all year. And then going down was unfortunate to see. But someone who's, I think, going to be hopefully in Jacksonville for a while and hopefully, just is able to stay healthy and play at the level that we all know he can play at because, yeah, he's a stud.
Yeah, and I think Tyson Campbell I wasn't too positive about him in the beginning. I'd rather take in someone like Asante Samuel. But Tyson Campbell's finally started to develop. We talked about it a little bit earlier. He was a highlight of the team this year, and I think he's only going to grow and improve next year. And then you have Rayshawn Jennings in the secondary, who he's not as good as what we signed him for, but they're not going to let him go. And then I hope and pray that Wingard is not our free safety, and a guy like Andre Sisco will be.
Yeah, and you've been high on him for a while. Obviously, the little in parentheses here is how he does play in these final 5 games. If he plays, how much he plays.
Yeah.
But someone who definitely has a much, much higher ceiling than Andrew Wingard. I know he's getting a lot of slack this episode, but he's not who you guys want to have back there.
No, and Sisco just brings that ball hawking secondary mentality, and he might give up the big play, which it's just going to happen, but he's also going to make the big play for us, and I think Jacksonville just needs that excitement because we haven't had it in a long time. And then I think just wrap up the depth right there and a draft option that we're high on, and I think we can close this out.
Yeah, some guys I'm not as familiar with, Shaquille Quarterman, Jordan Smith, and Rudy Ford. Just, some guys that are in the second half. We got a linebacker there, and then just, some guys that can just provide value in that depth spot because obviously it's the NFL. Injuries are going to happen.
Yeah, so Shaquille Quarterman's actually a Jackson native, and so everyone's a big fan of his. Just a good special teams player and can fill the role. Jordan Smith was a draft pick for UAB, and they basically redshirted him. That's just not a thing in the NFL, but they did it. And then Rudy Ford was supposed to be a special teams guy, and he's really developed. I still think we can find better players, and that's why we put him as a depth beast, but he can for sure rotate in.
Yeah, and just looking at the Jags draft that they do have coming, they just about have a pick around, stuff like that. They do kind of have a conditional pick from the Eagles based on Minshew. We'll kind of see if that works out, but worst comes to worst, if he doesn't end up playing 50% of snaps in 3 games, that 5th round conditional just turns into a 6th round. So really not a huge difference there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
with that pick, we were looking at, as you see at the bottom right, Mckilley Mckinley III, another Oregon guy. I'm pretty high on them. He leads college football in interceptions. And again, I just think the Jags need more of that ball hawking talent, create turnovers, get the ball back to Trevor, and I think more success will be found with that.
Yeah, and definitely always good to have those younger guys, but they do have some older guys that are going to be able to be leaders because, gosh, Miles Jack's been in the league for so long now in the real sense of things. Still feel like he's been in the league for 2 years, but it's really not the case there. But that's looking at everything there. We don't have special teams on here. Do we really see that much changing? Maybe a kicker, you said?
Yeah, for sure. Going to get a new kicker. Our punter's good, Logan.
Logan Cook.
Yeah.
He's got his fair share of game balls the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's been our best player. And then I think the only thing the Jags got to look at besides these players is we're thinking a new offensive coordinator, running back coach, and wide receiver coach. So who would be your top offensive coordinator option, you think?
You know, if there is a way where Byron Leftwich comes home,
that would be huge. I think that positions it well because Urban's going to be the coach next year. If you like it or not, he's going to be here. And I think if you get someone like Byron Leftwich, who is an up-and-coming coach, you bring him back to Jacksonville where he played. And if Urban does, for some reason, get fired, let's hope not, and let's hope the team actually does well. But you have an offensive coordinator within your system that you can just promote to head coach, and we don't have to go through all this change again and all these players who just, want some stabilize,
just some stability would be huge.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, as long as Urban keeps his hands to himself for the rest of the year, I don't really see him leaving. But
yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, that was just a little nugget there. Had to throw it in. But that's looking at hopefully this new and improved roster we see next year. We are going to hop back on the camera and just wrap things up here. So we'll catch you there. Thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode of Highlight 30. We wanted to be classy and have you guys at least be able to see us to wrap up there. I know we spent a little time off camera this episode, but, just wanted to do a proper sign-off here.
Yeah, and below, if you don't mind, or if you want to, drop your top free agent signing, who you want in the draft, and if we do replace our offensive coordinator, who you want to be. We're interested to see, and we look forward to it.
Yeah, that's about all.
Let's do it.
Take care.